Hey guys, want to do a video here on the difference between Trachycarpus fortunei and Trachycarpus wagnerianus. So this is a fortunei. This is about a 10-year-old one I've growing here in the yard. And if you look at the fronds, they are pretty big. They're about 24 inches right now, and they'll get bigger as the palm grows. And they're also fairly rigid, although you'll get occasional bends in the fronds like here. And as it gets older, the lower fronds will bend more, just like this, like that. And if you look at the leaflets, they're got this V shape to them, and the tips are fairly pointy, like that. Now when you look at a wagnerianus, there's a few distinct differences. So this is a wagnerianus palm. Now wagnerianus are not they're not found in the wild. So this is essentially a cultivated palm. So a palm that originated back, set to originate from Japan some couple hundred years ago, and was discovered and cultivated, and now it's becoming increasingly popular. And if you look, this guy is maybe 6 years old, 5-6 years old, and you can see the size of the fronds. They're about half the size of what a fortunei frond would look at this age. And the other huge difference is they're very stiff. So they're much stiffer than a fortunei would be. And if you look at the tips of them, the tips are very blunt. They're not very sharp, and they have a very pronounced V shape to them. So a very deep V on the fronds, which makes them stiff. And this palm typically grows a bit slower than fortunei, at least initially, and then as it gets more mature, it tends to speed up. As far as everything else, the trunk on it, wagnerianus, is a bit cleaner looking. It doesn't tend to have as many spent petioles showing to it. It's not as hairy as the fortunei would be, although it still has the hairs that are fairly universal to Trachycarpus palms. And I find the sheen on the fronds is more pronounced than on a regular fortunei. So it almost has like a bit of a waxy appearance. Another cool thing about wagnerianus is they tend to show these traits, these features, quite early on. So even like a 2-year-old plant will show these fronds, and you'll be able to tell it's different than a regular fortunei. I'll show you one that's only a couple years old, and it's still very small, and it looks just like this. So this is only a 3-year-old wagnerianus, and it's got about 8 inches of trunk on it, but it's still very small, and the fronds on it are only about 4 inches across. But you can see the traits already. That's a wagnerianus. It's got very stiff fronds. It's got that sheen to the fronds that makes it look very waxy, almost fake. And it's got those blunt tips and those deep grooves to the leaflets. So you can see it's already showing the traits of a wagnerianus. And if you were to look at a fortunei of this size, it would look different. So again, this palm is not found in the wild. It was discovered early, I think in the 1870s or somewhere around that time by a horticulturalist named Albert Wagner, which is where it gets its name from, and believed to have its origins in Japan. And in my opinion, this palm is superior in many ways to a Fortunei, especially in a cooler, wetter climate. It's more resistant to wind, to snow. It tends to tolerate the rain and the cool, wet winters just as well as a Fortunei. And it looks really nice. It never seems to deteriorate in terms of looks to the fronds. They're very attractive. So if you have an opportunity to pick up one of these palm trees or seeds from a Wagnerianus palm, give it a try. They're really nice palms, and they're becoming increasingly popular in the hobby, and thankfully because of that the price is slowly coming down on them. So I picked up this one for 25 bucks at Gardenworks, which was a steal. Larger ones can set you back a couple $100. Hope that helped a bit clear up the differences between Fortunei and Wagnerianus. And again, highly recommend for you to try out this palm. Now, you can also get hybrids, a cross between a regular Fortunei and a Wagnerianus, and that palm is called Trachycarpus takagi. And it will have the traits of both palms. It will have the stiffer fronds, but they'll be larger and look more like Trachycarpus Fortunei fronds, but they'll still have a bit of the look of the Wagnerianus with a little more luster, sheen to the fronds, and a stiffer frond overall. So that's a hybrid between Fortunei and Wagnerianus takagi. And that's what this one is here. And it's a 2-year-old plant.